Well, ladies and gents, welcome back to Cam and Dan Fan Cam, but today it's just me. There's no Cam, because Cameron is off enjoying summer heats in Mexico. Heats of 27 degrees Celsius if his girlfriend's Instagram story is to tell me anything. It's alright, I'm not mad at all. I'm not mad that I walked to the shop about an hour ago and was freezing my nuts off while he's off on some beach enjoying cocktails and the likes, but hey, it's fine. I know you're going to watch this, Cameron, so just know, I hope you're having a wonderful time. But when you come back, I will treat you with the same frigidness, the same coldness that I've been subjected to while you've been away enjoying yourself. But no matter how cold and frigid my heart may be, there is something that's warming it at this time, and that is the performance of my team in the Premier League. I would like to talk about that, among other things, football related during today's video. So, what have I missed? Well, in my absence, in our absence, a lot of shit has gone down. I think if you look at our Premier League table predictions rather, from the start of the season, you'll notice that both of us have potential to have egg on our face here as we continue into the mid stages of this season before we go to the World Cup. Cameron and I, neither of us had predicted Arsenal to finish in top 4. On his part, that was probably due to the fact that he has nothing but disdain for the club. But for me, it was just, I genuinely did not believe that Arsenal had it in them this season, despite the great signings they had made, to be free-flowing in attack, to be able to score enough goals to really push them into the top 4. I thought that Man United, in contrast, would have a new structure with Ten Hag in the head coach position, a new structure that would allow them to finally get the most out of some of their premium talents that they have. They brought in Casemiro, they have Varane, Ronaldo, multiple Champions League winners, and I thought that would just see them clear of Arsenal, at least in this season. I spoke optimistically of seasons to come because it's the youngest side in the Premier League, and I did feel that the only way was up for the squad, but I didn't think it would come this fast, because now I'm looking at the table and I'm thinking maybe I need to reconsider my beliefs of where this Arsenal team can finish. Now, I'm very much late to this party. It seems like everyone's jumped the gun. That's 2 puns in one sentence that I did not intend. I intended neither of them. But hey, Arsenal now are sitting top of the Premier League with 34 points, just faltering twice with 1 defeat to Man United at Old Trafford and 1 draw at home, I believe, to Southampton. It may have been away. I can't recall. I did watch the game, and I have to say that draw did not come as a shock, because the weeks before, the performances were quite shaky. The win at Liverpool was great, if at times fortuitous. I do think Arsenal were worthy winners, but the nature of the officiating decisions that went their way were quite fortunate at times. And then you had the Leeds game, which I thought, honestly, I was texting my mates because in the second half, I thought I was watching Barcelona of 2011. Like, Leeds turned into a completely different side and they dominated that second half, and Arsenal just, all they could do was sit back and soak up pressure. And then when the Southampton game came along, the first half, plain sailing once again, Arsenal dominant, should have gone into that halftime break, multiple goals in the lead, but did not, and in the end were punished for being so lacklustre in front of goal. By contrast, Cameron's not here to defend them, so I can have free reign. By contrast, Tottenham are almost the exact reverse. Their first halves are turgid and just grim to watch from a neutral standpoint. And that's probably why so many neutral fans are speaking with disbelief that Conte can really maintain this run of results that Tottenham are seeing. Because yes, while they've just lost to Liverpool this weekend, they've been picking up the results. Results that their style of play would not have you believe that they were capable of. But if you take a look at what they've actually managed to achieve so far this season, top of the group in the Champions League, and until this weekend, third in the Premier League, now sitting in fourth. A few points clear of Manchester United, though Manchester United do have that game in hand. You have to say, though their style of football is rancid, because it is rancid, they come out and they just have such a low block for the first 45 minutes. But though they're doing that, they're still popping up on the counter with that quality that we all know they have, and they're getting those crucial goals in the last minute. And I have to tell you, I'm getting quite fed up of it. I've told Cameron the amount of times that I'm watching a Tottenham game, And I'm so excited to laugh at them for dropping points. I'm ready. I'm sitting there, my popcorn out, ready to go and watch Expressions just cry on a live stream. And then I do turn on a live stream. I turn off the game, and I get ready for his full-time outburst. And they just end up scoring in the 93rd or the 95th or whatever. And they end up getting all the points or stealing the win where it did not look possible. And I'm getting a bit fed up with it, to be honest. Now, admittedly, Tottenham have been missing some key players of late. Kulusevski has been a massive loss. We saw that at the weekend against Liverpool when he did come on, and the whole momentum of the game seemed to shift. Now, it had shifted before then. In fact, right from the second half beginning, Tottenham looked much the better side in that game. But Kulusevski comes on and he provides that creative cutting edge that we know he's capable of. I'm a big fan of Kulusevski, despite not being the biggest fan of the club. But you can't deny his impact, and it was there for all to see. You've also, of course, been missing Son, which has been a huge loss, not just for Tottenham, but for the league as a whole. He's a wonderful player to watch, and it would be a shame if he can't end up going to the World Cup in Qatar in the next few weeks, although Conte has spoken optimistically of his chances, so there's still hope for that. But look, we can't really be surprised with Conte's style of play that he has implemented at Tottenham, because this is what we've seen for a long time. The difference being he maybe doesn't have the quality, particularly in those wing-back positions, to truly see his philosophy come to the fore. I guess, for fear of rambling too much, what I'm trying to say is that I think given a couple more windies, I'm going up to Glasgow again with that one. I think with a few more transfer windows, we'll start to see Conte really being able to allow his players to just be off the reins a little bit. I'm not expecting them to be free-flowing attacking, that's not really Conte's MO, but when he has a defence that he can truly trust, wing-backs that he can truly depend on, getting into those forward positions and assisting in the attack, linking up the play, because at times it has looked a bit like the formation has looked a bit disjointed, with the forwards being somewhat isolated and having to drop too deep to receive the ball, not being able to really be in those dangerous positions to hurt teams when they have possession. Tottenham are a great counter-attacking side, there's no doubt, but when playing against that low block, they sometimes struggle to have players in the right places at the right times to be able to really capitalise on dominance in possession. But I think we'll start to see that change when Conte gets some fresh legs in the door, like I said. But though we can't be surprised about Conte's style of play and Spurs generally being underwhelming because of not having the personnel who are able to implement that style of play, something that has been a massive surprise, not just to me, but I'd say to most people, has been Newcastle's performances this season. Now, I fully expected Newcastle to break into that top six, maybe next season, but definitely not this season. And they've not only broken into the top six, they're currently sitting third in the Premier League, ahead of United, ahead of Chelsea, ahead of Spurs now. And, well, to be frank, they look quite unstoppable. Back-to-back thrashings of teams, Southampton most recently, costing Hasenhüttl his job, which, by the way, I think that's quite unfortunate for Hasenhüttl. I've been a big fan of his coaching style. Yes, he's been on the receiving end of some drummings over the years, but I had a look at the table, and in fact, if I even look at it now, I can talk to you about the position that Southampton currently find themselves in, which is 18th, just in the relegation zone on 12 points. Now, the problem is that's 12 points from 14 games. It's just not good enough for a team that have cemented themselves in the Premier League over the past few years. Like I said, there have been some rocky patches where they've narrowly escaped that lower end of the table and have been sitting just in the mid-table. But the reason I bring that up is because, yes, they're sitting on 12 points, but if they had picked up just one more win, they would find themselves in about 13th position. Yes, 13th position they'd find themselves in if they had managed to pick up one more win. And that's why when I go back to the Arsenal performance, where Southampton absolutely ran the show in the second half, despite the fact that they should have been put to bed in the first, if they had managed to capitalise on their dominance against Arsenal, the way that we were just camped in our own box, then I think Hasenhüttl would still have his job. And that really just highlights, though it's a cliche to say, the fine margins of error that you're able to have in the Premier League at this top level. Now, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, Newcastle. Their form has been outstanding. No player more so has seen an upturn in form than Miguel Almiron, who I think has 7 in 7 now, which, God, I knew he was a decent talent, but I always thought he was someone that would never have that X factor in front of goal. He always seemed like he would be a profligate player, but it seems like Eddie Howe has really worked on his ability to finish in that final third, or perhaps Eddie Howe didn't need to, and he just knew that would come with that talent once it was just a little bit more honed out. Newcastle have been without, for most of this season now, their star signing of the summer in Alexander Isak, a player who, I won't lie, I once wanted at Arsenal. Nowadays, I think I'm happy with what we have based on our position in the table, but I think Isak has the potential to be an excellent player in the future. Again, like Almiron though, I perhaps doubt his talent in front of goal, but that's not to say that can't be improved upon. He's very young, so we'll see, but it's very, very bright as a start for Newcastle, with them sitting in third place, which again, I just didn't expect, but fair play to them. I hope that they continue. I would love to see the table honestly end as it looks right now. I think that would be quite great. Maybe we could sneak Liverpool back into that fourth spot. Speaking of, I don't really know what's happened to Liverpool. No, that's a lie. I do know what's happened to Liverpool. Liverpool have no Mane. When Mane went to Bayern, I seriously underestimated the impact that would have on this team's playstyle. And now when I look back in hindsight, that looks very foolish. But I know that I can't have been alone in thinking that. I can't have been the only one that thought that Liverpool would still have enough with Luis Diaz on one side replacing Mane, and still Mohamed Salah on the right being as world class as we know that he's able to be. But the thing is, Salah's had a very, very slow start this season. Firmino at the start was that standout player, and Salah looked to be missing something, missing that hunger, that cutting edge. Perhaps people were considering that he should maybe have a new start somewhere. But of late, he's really come back into his own again. Hat-trick in the Champions League, which seem to spark performances in the future, such as his goal against Man City to win Liverpool that game. And then most recently, his double against Spurs. The first of which, by the way, just a thing of beauty to watch. Just the speed, the reaction speed, and just the ruthlessness of that strike is something that I think Nunez can really learn from and will learn from. Because while a lot of people are writing off Nunez nowadays, I think we're starting to see now that he's settling a bit, and his dangerous runs, they are yielding him a lot of opportunities. He might not be taking them right now, but I think he will. I think he'll come good. Now, that's not to say that I don't think that their purchase was wasteful in terms of the amount that they had to pay to get him. But for sure, I think there are bright days ahead for Liverpool, despite some people thinking they're in the mud, despite the FSG coming out and saying that they're considering options to sell the club if the right bid is made. I don't expect that to rock the boat too much within the Liverpool camp. I also expect Klopp to not stand down at the end of this season. There was a point a few weeks ago where I was feeling like it was almost inevitable that Klopp would take a step back and allow someone else to come in and perhaps retire, perhaps go on to a different challenge. But now I think we're starting to see that passion is still very much there for Klopp. We saw their first away win since April, since May, what was it? Their first away win at Spurs. You saw the love that he still has for that club in his interaction with the away fans at the end of the game, bringing back the Klopp fist bumps. And I expect Liverpool to steady their ship, familiarise themselves a bit more with the players around them, particularly in that front three. And when Luis Diaz comes back in, I can only see it really going up. And that's why I think I would have Liverpool as potential outsiders to squeeze into that top four, despite them being a little bit off at the moment. Although saying that, they're not too far off. If I just take a look at the table here, 7 points off of fourth position, with a game in hand, could narrow it down to 4 points off that top position. It is doable. Well, 4 points off that top position, assuming that Manchester United don't win their game in hand over Tottenham, which would see them... No, I would still see them 4 points. Never mind. Ignore me. But yeah, on that note, Man United. What are we thinking? I think I've been very impressed. For the most part, I think the loss of Varane recently can be attributed as a key, the poor performances can be attributed somewhat to the loss of Varane in that back line. Now, namely, of course, I'm talking about the most recent 3-1 defeat to Aston Villa, at Villa Park, which I think is the first time that Villa have beaten United at Villa Park in over 2 decades, perhaps, maybe even more than that now. But yeah, I also think that the European factor has been huge. Something that we've seen with Arsenal is that when those European games come along, when the Europa League comes along, that Thursday-Sunday routine, we've seen that Arsenal are able to change around their lineup a bit more than Man United are. And that's because I don't think that Ten Hag truly has faith in the larger squad at Man United yet to get the job done. It also didn't help that they needed to win that Sociedad game by 2 goals to top the group to avoid that annoying playoff game that they now have, and we've seen is against Barcelona, which will be some game. Champions League is, well, the Europa League is basically becoming the Champions League light version, isn't it? And I think we're all here for it, to be honest. It's good to see Europa League start to step up in quality, or is it Champions League teams stepping down in quality? I don't know. But what I do know is that there's a playoff match happening between the biggest club in England and the team, possibly the biggest club, one of 2 biggest clubs in Spain, who are currently sitting top of their league, having to play this playoff game for this B-Tech European competition that no one even wants to be in. Teams want to win it. At the end of the day, it's silverware, and yes, it's European silverware, so it does carry weight. But I think we're seeing with Man United, more so than we are with Arsenal, the fact that it really acts as a roadblock in the league ambitions of the teams that are in it, the teams that are pushing to be in the top tier of their respective divisions. Because Man United had to field, 10 of the same 11 players that had played in the Europa League game, they had to field them against Villa. And we saw that they just didn't really have it in the legs. And I think that could be something that we have to see in the future if Man United do knock Barcelona out. But despite that lacklustre performance at the weekend just gone, as I said, I have been impressed with Man United's displays of late, of the whole season, in truth, despite the 4-0 spankings at Brentford, the trouncing from Man City. Those games will come as the players, those performances will come as the players struggle to kind of grasp Ten Hag's philosophy. Now, what hasn't helped as well is their lack of true threat in front of goal. Martial started the season fairly strong, but then went out injured. Ronaldo started the season as a ghost and has continued to be a ghost. He's had a few chances, but he just hasn't looked to be at the same level that he has been over the past few years, and even was last season. It's really starting to show the age in those legs at this top level. Now, I spoke at the start of this video about the excellent performances of the Arsenal players and the Arsenal squad as a whole, which was on display for all to see against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge at the weekend. Chelsea, in contrast, they look a bit confused. They just don't look quite up to it yet. That doesn't mean that I don't think they won't get there, but at the moment they're lacking a real clinical edge in front of goal, much like Potter's Brighton did, And though the quality of attackers that Potter has at his disposal are far beyond that of the Brighton players that he was working with, there still looks like they're missing a real number 9, a cutting edge, something that Aubameyang they might have hoped would have brought, but as we'd known from his time at Arsenal, Aubameyang isn't really the player that you can rely on. I'm sure he's probably a lovely guy. I'm sure he's a good laugh in the dressing room, and he's great for squad morale when he's not shitting on the coaches and the young players for being too much of yes men, while he rides around in his chrome Lamborghini and turns up to training late. But anyway, I'm sure he's a great guy, but he doesn't have that killer instinct anymore, which we saw in his last season at Arsenal. I think back to, what was the game? Was it a game against Newcastle where the ball bounced out to him like 4 yards from the goal and he smashed it against the post somehow? He might have been offside in that moment, but it still kind of exemplified the drop-off in terms of his quality of finishing. So Chelsea are missing that spark up top. There were hopes that Sterling would provide it. Cameron thought that Sterling would provide it. I was insistent that Sterling is not that guy. Sterling, somewhat similarly to Jesus, has never been that cutthroat, give him one chance he'll score sort of player. He has his strengths in other regards, out wide and being able to run in behind, but that's not really Potter's game plan, and so we're not seeing the best of Sterling. In fact, we're seeing Sterling being forced very much wide in Potter's system at times, which is not playing to his strengths at all. And so I think they're going to have to look elsewhere, particularly in January, try and find a new striker who's able to be up there, be an aerial presence perhaps. They do have Armando Broja, who could provide that outlet, but he also might be a bit too young and a bit too inexperienced. He looked very good against Arsenal. He had a very, very nice run down the left side and put in what looked to be a dangerous ball across into the 6-yard box, into the danger area. But I don't think he's ready to really carry that club, to carry the mantle, to carry the weight of that club on his shoulders. And they need someone who is. Now, they've got the money to do so, to go out and get someone like that. Todd Bowley, I'm sure, will spare no expense in the winter window to try and find a solution to Potter's problems. At least that's what I would expect. Now, one thing that Chelsea fans need to be careful of is that they don't hound on Potter too soon. We need to allow Potter the amount of time that he needs to see his vision at least start to take shape. If you don't like the way it's looking, maybe a few months down the line, maybe you can talk then about looking elsewhere for a team that demands success to the extent that Chelsea do and have done for the past 2 decades. But we need to give him a chance, I think. Just like Arteta needed to be given a chance, to be given some extra time when he was looking like he was struggling and could have been forced out, Potter, I think, he's shown us enough in the past few seasons to know that he does know what he's doing and he can be trusted to build a project. That doesn't mean that he can be trusted to come in immediately and win trophies, but he can be trusted to build a team that's capable of challenging. That I do believe, and that I think most Chelsea fans would believe as well. You just need to make sure that Todd Bowley believes it as well. Now, hopefully you'll forgive me if this video has seemed like it's been a bit aimless, kind of wandering from team to team and just discussing random table standings, but it's because I've missed a lot over the past couple of months, as has Cameron, and I'm sure that when he comes back we'll be able to give you a much more focused show where we go by results one by one. But for now, I think I've given a decent overview of the top end of the table and my thoughts currently on those teams. Now let's take a look at the bottom end of the table and talk about who I think are in danger perhaps of giving us a shock and going down where we had expected them not to, and who's exceeding our predictions with regards to where they're currently sitting in the table. So, where can we start? Other than Wolves. Now, if you look at my table prediction, yes, I did have Wolves in 8th position. Now, let me try and defend myself, okay? At the start of this season, I was very optimistic about their chances because last season they had one of the best defensive records. Sorry, the season before the last, they had one of the best defensive records, and then last season as well, they had one of the best defensive records. Perhaps I was naive to think that Raul Jimenez could come back after that major head injury and be the same player that he was before that happened to him. Perhaps I was naive in that. Daniel Podence has never been clinical in a similar fashion to Almiron, impressive in every other respect, and instead, or besides, in front of goal. But Neto hasn't really done that. Jimenez hasn't done that. Fabio Silva looks to be a bit of a waste of that £35 million that they'd spent on him. They just haven't found the goals. And when that happens, you're going to end up in situations like they're in now. 8 defeats, 4 draws and 2 wins from their opening 14 games this season, which has seen them with 10 points, joint bottom, just ahead of Nottingham Forest on goal difference. Where do we go for Wolves? Well, Lopetegui's coming in. Do I know much about Lopetegui? Not really. For Spain, I saw a few of his games, but I never really familiarised myself with his tactics. So, I'll have to see how that turns out. At present, I think they still have enough to squeeze past definitely Bournemouth. Bournemouth, who are currently sitting just 3 points ahead of them, just outside the relegation zone. I think they have enough to squeeze past Bournemouth, perhaps achieve survival if one of those other teams that we're looking at, Southampton, Everton, even Leicester, although Leicester have looked much improved of late, I can see Wolves maybe squeezing out, but definitely not getting into that 8th position. God, that looks like a terrible pick. What doesn't look like, or what didn't look like too bad of a pick though, a few weeks ago, was my pick of Leeds dropping into the relegation spots. Now, Leeds are currently 3 points safe from relegation, But what's really making me think that I was misguided in making that prediction is the general spirit of the team, which of course is bolstered by an incredibly loyal fan base, a diehard fan base that make their ground something of a fortress, which we saw when Arsenal went there and struggled to narrowly achieve that victory. But then the week after, Leeds, after putting in a great show against Arsenal, make no mistake about it, they might not have got the result, but the play was phenomenal for large parts. They went to Liverpool and deservedly got 3 points against them in a thriller of a match. And then in the week just gone by, again got a fully deserved, thrilling victory over Bournemouth, which ended 4-3. Now, I think Leeds will be safe as well. So I'm left to consider who will be bottom three at the end of the season. And at present, I think I'm looking at Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, two teams that I did predict to finish in the bottom three. So, I mean, yeah, big whoop for me. Everyone did. They just got up. Probably those two. And honestly, I think it's Southampton's time as well, which I feel like we say every season. Every season Southampton are in the conversation. And everyone thinks, oh, this is going to be their year. This is going to be their year. And they always just prove their doubters wrong by avoiding that relegation. But now that they've rocked the boat fully, tilted the boat even, knocked Hasenhüttl overboard into the waters below, I don't know, I think they could just be a bit too unsettled to really stand a chance of achieving their usual mid-table position. But time will tell. We'll see who comes in instead of, or in place of, Ralph Hasenhüttl, and we'll see if they can do a job. But they've got quite a job on their hands. Quite a lot of restructuring needs to be done. Despite impressively spirited performances like they've put in recently, the results haven't been there, so whoever comes in needs to find a solution, and they need to do it fast. Been a very, very entertaining season so far, and I don't expect that to let up anytime soon. Where do I think Arsenal will finish this season? Well, top right now. They beat Wolves on Saturday night. They'll be top going into the Christmas period, going into the World Cup. And then it's like a fresh start. And then you're looking at, what will it be?
My dog stepped on a bee.
23 games, 24 games left of the season, which is still a sizable chunk. But it will feel like Arsenal will go in, okay, we've had that buffer now, that's part of the season gone, let's break it up into chapters, much like Mikel does break games into chapters. I think I've heard him say before, break it into little periods. You can consider that first third of the season broken up, dealt with, and they find themselves in a very, very strong position. Can they go all the way? Yes. Will they? I think not. Not with a player of Haaland's quality breathing down their necks. And God, Haaland has been a revelation. Or has he been? I don't know. We all expected him to do well, or at least most of us, people that know ball, people that are sane, expected Haaland to do well. Maybe not as well as he's doing. What's he on? Is it 18 goals now or 19? 18 goals or something. And far and away top scorer, on course to break Salah's record of a few years ago of the most goals in a 38-game season. I think he'll do it comfortably, provided that he can stay injury free. He's had a little bit of a shaky one this week where injuries are concerned, but nah, he'll be back to it this weekend. He'll be back to it after the World Cup. He'll be rejuvenated. He'll be fired up after having basically a month's rest during the World Cup, and I think he'll be good to go. And when these two teams face each other, when Arsenal and City face each other, it's all about that battle for me, that Saliba versus Haaland battle. Whoever wins that probably sees their performance, their contributions determine who wins that match. I think Arsenal are capable of getting something off City. Don't know if that means a win, but if they can at least avoid defeat in one of those two fixtures, I think Arsenal could really have a chance this time in May of snatching a title where nobody thought that anyone would be able to snatch a title off of Manchester City, such as the dominance, such as the pedigree that currently resides within that squad. So it's going to be a fun one. Stay tuned, there's going to be more videos coming, not just with me, but Cam will be back, I'm sure. And yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting second or last 2/3 of the season. Sure, we'll also try and get some content out there about the World Cup, during the World Cup, perhaps discussing results, perhaps a watch along of some kind. I don't know. We'll try and get something in there. What helps me is that I work in the evenings and a lot of the games are televised during the day. I expect the final will be televised at night though, which won't be ideal. Maybe I'll be able to sneak a day off from work that day. I don't know. But yeah, that's all for me, guys. Have a wonderful day. Come and join us next time. We'll be discussing more football and yeah, keep enjoying the game. Cheers.